Anchor line clear. New. Thoughtful.
We are at the intersection of power, money, and sports. Today we're talking about the collapse of a political shield at the top of the state. A monstrous 16% stock market prediction that defies all skepticism, and an NFL defensive performance that reminds us where real titles are won. The administration yields, Wall Street ignites, and Philadelphia dominates. We're dissecting all of it in depth. To understand this, we have to go back a few weeks. The White House, via the Department of Justice, was using the same tired arguments. Security concerns, protection of victims, ongoing investigation. Basically excuses to keep these secrets locked away.
Exactly. It was the official line, but it was also an attempt at political control. The executive branch absolutely did not want these documents, which risk splattering donors and friends of the elite to see the light of day. Except, this time, the pressure came from within.
That's what's historical. The House of Representatives, pushed by a cross-party coalition, including right-wing figures like Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, launched a frontal offensive. They put a procedure in place that made the vote inevitable. The bill was guaranteed to pass with a colossal margin.
The administration calculated, if they maintained their opposition, the president would be seen as the only obstacle to the truth. Politically, it was suicide. There was a real risk of dozens of his own supporters voting against him, fracturing his leadership. It was certain defeat and public humiliation.
So, the reversal. The president did a 180-degree turn in 48 hours. He goes from total blockage to, I'm for it, I'll sign the bill. It's a Hollywood-worthy change of tune. But is it sincere?
No, absolutely not. Authenticity is dead here. If there was an ounce of sincerity, he could have, at any moment, ordered the Attorney General to release these documents. The DOJ doesn't need a congressional law to declassify files, especially when the public interest is so obvious.
So it's purely a crisis management operation. He's trying to take credit for the action to minimize the impact of his initial resistance.
It's a desperate attempt to control the narrative. The goal isn't transparency, but to be able to say, I signed the law, I allowed the release. It's a strategy to shed the label of Epstein's secret protector and pin it on his rivals.
Let's talk about the real implications. Does this reversal guarantee that we will see everything, the complete list of names and details?
That's where cynicism has to set in. DOJ lawyers will now work day and night to find the legal loopholes. They can still invoke the part of the law concerning the protection of confidential information or sources. The risk is that we get a massive release, yes, but with strategic redactions on the most embarrassing names. They'll give the minimum to satisfy the law, but without releasing the maximum truth.
So it's a public defeat, but a potential victory for selective secrecy. That's the difference between legal transparency and moral transparency.
Precisely. And look at what this reveals about the president's authority. He lost a major battle against his own base. When key members of Congress turn against you on such a sensitive issue, it creates a lasting fracture. It shows that presidential influence isn't total, even within his own party. It's a humiliation.
In the end, the cost of this initial resistance is huge. What did the administration gain by holding on for so long?
They gained memory. The public will remember that for months they actively tried to block the release. This fuels the already strong idea that the powerful protect their own, and that the Epstein affair goes far beyond one man. Every day of resistance gave weight to the conspiracy theory.
And emotionally, for the victims, it's an ordeal. They had to watch their country's government fight to bury information that could bring justice or at least provide answers.
It's an affront. The president's failure to recognize the public interest immediately turns his signature into an act of forced capitulation rather than a gesture of leadership. The real story is no longer what's in the files, but why they spent so much time and effort hiding them. Secrecy is the new currency of cynicism.
We have the boldest prediction of the year. The bears are going into hibernation because one of the biggest names on Wall Street just dropped a number. The S&P 500 is ready for a 16% rally. This is the bull call everyone was waiting for. Is this the end of pessimism, or the start of a massive mistake. For those who aren't glued to their terminal, we're talking about the forecast from a leading figure, a renowned strategist, Mike Wilson. This guy was the biggest pessimist last year. He was right to doubt the market, to predict the correction. He was in the bear camp for months.
Yeah, he was the prophet of doom we loved to hate. He saved a lot of people from getting burned. And that is precisely what makes his current reversal so spectacular and so suspicious.
Exactly. And now he's changing his tune. He's no longer saying, "Watch out, it's going to drop." He says, "We're going to see the S&P 500 hit a target that I can barely say out loud because it's so optimistic. We're talking about a 16% jump. This is a total shift in momentum. Why now? What has he seen that others haven't?"
It's simple. According to his analysis, the main factor is disinflation taking root. The market has been too focused on high interest rates. But if inflation really slows down and we don't have a hard recession, the environment changes. The Fed might, just might, start talking about cutting rates.
Ah, the famous Fed pivot. That's the holy grail. That's what creates the energy. If inflation drops without the economy collapsing, the famous soft landing, then corporate margins will improve, and most importantly, their stock valuations will skyrocket.
The problem is that it's a prophecy built on hope, not certainty. The market has already priced in part of the soft landing. Look at the prices. Are the real corporate earnings going to support a 16% rise? Wilson himself just a few months ago was saying that profit growth was the real risk.
That's where I have a touch of skepticism too, despite my boundless energy. Last year, companies were crushed by rising costs. Where is the evidence that those costs will genuinely fall fast enough to justify 16%?
Exactly. Wilson is betting the worst is behind us, that margin expansion will be the new engine. But for us, authentic analysts, we have to ask, isn't this just a bluff? When the biggest bear turns into a bull, he might be trying to lure in small investors before reality catches up. That's the essence of the contrarian trade.
You think it's a trap? That he's trying to push the market up to sell his own positions at a higher price?
I think he's an analyst who knows that to stay relevant, he has to make a bold call. The most dangerous position in finance is to be consensus. Saying the S&P 500 will go up 5% interests no one. Saying 16% generates energy. It forces the debate. It puts you on the map. That's the Wall Street game.
So what does this change for the average investor listening to us?
It changes the mood. It gives people permission to be optimistic. After months of fear where everyone was talking about an inevitable recession, a heavyweight name like Wilson brings legitimacy to the idea of a rebound. It's psychological before it's fundamental.
So he's creating market sentiment. It's a psychological driver that could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If enough people start believing in this 16% rally, they'll buy, and that will push the market up, even if the fundamentals don't immediately follow.
Precisely. But never forget that consensus is rarely the right place to be. We still have the shadow of U.S. debt and the specter of trade tensions weighing on future profitability. If the rally comes, it will likely be highly selective. You need to be careful about where you invest, not the entire S&P 500. There will be winners and many losers, even in a 16% rise.
The message is clear. Don't bet your whole house on this single prediction, but be prepared in case the tide turns.
We saw a monstrous defense in the NFL that has put a huge question mark over a team we thought was very strong. And on the other side, in the NBA, it's the moment of truth for the Knicks against a rival who never gives up. We start in the NFL, and it's the big shock of the weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles face the Detroit Lions. Everyone expected an offensive match, a shootout with Jared Goff and the entire Detroit cavalry firing on all cylinders.
Yes,
But we didn't get a shootout. We got a defensive massacre. The Eagles' defense, which was often criticized, simply shut down Jared Goff and the Lions' offense. It was a clinical performance, a clear message sent to the entire league. We were talking about the Lions as favorites, and there, they were silenced.
Unbelievable. And meanwhile, in the NBA, the drama continues. The New York Knicks face the Miami Heat. It's not just a game, it's a historic rivalry, always electric. And the Knicks, who have ambitions, are under the microscope.
It's a test of character. The Knicks must show they can beat a tough rival, a team that plays physical and never gives out gifts in the regular season, especially at home.
Let's go back to the Eagles. We talked about their offense, their quarterback, but this defense, it has become the X factor. It's not just that they beat the Lions, it's how they did it. They put pressure on, they forced errors, and they made Goff invisible.
This is the authenticity of January football. The Eagles are proving what true champions understand. Offense sells tickets, defense wins titles. Their ability to stop the run and generate pass rush on Goff, that's what propels them to the next level. The Lions will have to look at themselves. Is their offense really Super Bowl material if it collapses like that under pressure?
And it's important for the Eagles' confidence. After ups and downs in the middle of the season, this is the performance that tells them, yes, we are a Super Bowl team, and our defense can compete with the best. That changes everything for the playoff dynamic. The buzz is a buzz of fear for their opponents.
Now, the Knicks against the Heat. This is the kind of game where the bets ignite. The predictions are tight, often based on the recent form of key players. How will the matchup between New York's guards and Miami's relentless defense be managed?
It's the benchmark test. If the Knicks want to be considered a serious contender in the East, they have to prove they can dominate a direct rival, even if the Heat isn't at its peak. The spotlight is on their ability to score in the clutch when the game is tight. That's where the star players must step up.
I have authentic skepticism about their late-game performance. Miami plays with a grinta culture, a culture of grit or fighting spirit. They always find a way to stay in the game and force the opponent into mistakes. For the Knicks, the challenge is not just to win, it's to win by mastering the pressure. If they rely too much on outside shots and forget the interior game, they are in danger.
So it's a game about mentality. The Knicks' energy must be channeled, or it turns into recklessness. Miami, meanwhile, uses its experience to turn that recklessness into an advantage.